Hello, brothers and sisters. Raven here. Sorry I couldn't be on for a week. Had another episode. Had to let it heal. But I'm back. And today, taking another step forward in building Christian character. This book, we're getting close to the end, but things keep coming up. This time, it's something that is kind of small, a little more insignificant. But I could not stop thinking about it after reading it. I knew from the start I disagreed with it. I felt like he was going too far with something. But it didn't seem like something that really had to be confronted at first. It didn't seem like that huge of an issue. But as I thought about it more and more, it just, something felt wrong. And I just sat down and prayed about it. And then realized there was something to this I needed to confront. So we're going to look at a quote that's from page 338 of Building Christian Character. In this portion of the book, Blair has been discussing what happened between Jesus and Peter during the Last Supper, when Jesus talked about how he was going to have to give up himself, what was going to happen, and Peter talked about protecting him, and Jesus said, "Get behind me, Satan." Blair, of course, wants to take this place where Jesus would say something so extreme, so far out there, to call him Satan. And as you'd expect, I want to take advantage of it. I want to use that to really bring more of that fear they always use. Well, here he starts to go into why this was bad, why Peter shouldn't have said this. And what I don't like about this is it completely shifts the focus on how this is about his sacrifice, about how this is about when he's going to be crucified, he's going to pay the price. This is what he came to do. And instead, he puts it more on us. He says this. Page 338, he says, Jesus seemed to be condemning Peter's notion of self-preservation and survival at any cost as actually having its origins in the viewpoint of Jesus' arch adversary. This was not about the fact that Peter wanted to protect somebody, save somebody's life. John 15, Christ says, "Greater love is no man than this, than he give his life for his friend." Protecting a life, saving a life, was considered the greatest love. And as Blair points out, when he starts talking about this, God is love. This is not about the fact that you shouldn't preserve yourself or survive, but that's not even what this is about, period. This had nothing to do with self-preservation. Peter was not talking about protecting himself, he was talking about protecting Christ. This doesn't fit, even if what he was saying was true. The passage in this conversation has nothing to do with self-preservation. Blair's the one who brings this up, not the scripture. Peter was only talking about saving Christ, protecting him, not himself. So why? Why does Blair want this to be the focus? As I said, it sounds so extreme when Christ calls him Satan. One of the biggest things they keep pushing when you go to join Homestead is giving up yourself, sacrificing yourself, dying to yourself. And as I keep saying, they don't give that concept of born again. They hardly mention that, and they don't like to discuss that. They seem to avoid that because they want you fully dedicated and given over to them. As part of the book is all about getting you to give yourself up. And that any sense of self-preservation is Satan. This is what keeps coming up and is going to come up again and again and again as long as you're looking at a cult. Fear. Fear is always what they use to control. Fear is always what they use to keep you in their grasp, to keep you listening to them. Fear of judgment. Usually, though they'll say at times it is, it doesn't end up being because of God's. It becomes their judgment of you. You're not supposed to think of yourself. You're supposed to know by what they tell you. They're the ones with the authority. They're the ones with the knowledge. They're the ones who understand it right, not you. To the point where what Blair is doing here is making it where they know better what you should do with your life than you do. And indirectly, that means they know better than God. He's talking as though that's not the case. That's because they see themselves as Christ. If they're saying it, he's saying it. If he's saying it, that's God. If they say it, it's God speaking. That's how it works. This is what they keep doing with every passage. It is something I discussed recently with a former member who talked to me. Great conversation, great time. And since there's been a few things in particular that at the time seemed like something that kind of expected, but have stuck with me. One in particular is that he talked about how the books, the writings, and especially how they quote scripture and even other writers, other authors, things from history and stuff like that, how much they just pick out little parts and they put them together the right way. They make them say what they want them to say, not what they're really saying. Same thing right here. You've got something talking about preventing somebody else from dying and making it as though you are preserving yourself. He's not just changing it a little bit. He's not just making it sound like something else. He's completely flipping what it's talking about. And that's what's been so disturbing to me the last few days that made this, I think, really sink into me, is just the way we were discussing how they go and they twist everything. Make everything sound the way they want it to sound. It was all about getting it to say what they wanted it to say, the way they wanted it to say it. You can easily miss how this is twisting what the passage was about. Always, always, always. First thing you gotta do when you're dealing with somebody who's teaching about scripture, not to go and check and see, okay, is what they're saying a good way to look at it? Is that a good way to analyze it, etc.? No. Start off, first and foremost, is everything they're saying, the Bible's saying, really what it's saying? Because this is not what it's saying. This is not what happened. When he brings this up, he never goes and shows the passage. He never goes and really discusses or explains what Peter said to do, what Peter was going to do. He just gave a very general, vague mention of this. That's where you got to start. Because until they're actually discussing what's in Scripture and not just creating their own idea, you're not going to get anywhere. If they're doing that, you're not really discussing Scripture. You're discussing something that isn't there. And there's nothing you can really do because there's nothing there to argue. There's nothing there to say, oh, well, it meant this by it. No, because it's not even there to talk about. Don't let them tell you what it's saying and then assume because there's some similarity that it's really what it's saying. Check it. The Bible's the authority, not them. So he wants you to have any idea that you don't have to give yourself fully to Homestead. You're Satan. This wasn't about Peter saving himself. He was going to save Christ. How can you say saving the Son of God is a bad thing? That wasn't the problem. No, the problem was going against God's plan. Going against what he said needs to happen. Claiming, indirectly, you know better than him. Which is exactly what Blair Adams and these leaders do when they change what Scripture's saying. I'll see y'all next time. God bless.